My son took my country house and gave it to his wife's family. He said, "It's theirs now. You have no rights to go there." I just nodded and smiled. When they arrived to move in, they were shocked at what they saw. I will tell you everything from the beginning. But first, let me quickly thank each and every one of you beautiful souls watching Granny's Voice today. Your love and support fills my heart with joy. If you enjoy the stories I share with you, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I love reading your comments, so please tell me what city you're watching from today. I might just give you a special shout out in my next story. Today's wonderful shout out goes to sweet Emma from California. Thank you for your kind words, dear heart. Now let me tell you exactly what happened at my country house. I've lived a long life, 73 years to be exact. And I've learned that sometimes the quietest response carries the most power. People expect tears, arguments, fighting back. But honey, I've discovered that a gentle smile can move mountains that shouting never could. The country house wasn't just any house. It was my sanctuary. My late husband Robert and I bought that little cabin 45 years ago when our son Michael was just 3 years old. Back then it was nothing special. Just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a tiny kitchen. But oh, the dreams we had for that place. Robert worked extra shifts at the factory every weekend for 5 years just to pay for the additions we wanted. I can still see Robert on those Saturday mornings, coffee cup in one hand, measuring tape in the other, planning out where we'd build the big front porch. "Martha," he'd say, "someday we're going to sit on that porch swing and watch our grandchildren play in this yard." And we did, dear ones. We absolutely did. I painted every room myself while little Michael napped. Robert built that porch with his own 2 hands, board by board. We planted the apple trees that now tower over the property. Every corner of that house held a memory. Every floorboard told a story. When Robert passed away 8 years ago, that house became even more precious to me. It was where I felt closest to him, where his spirit still lived in every creaking step and familiar shadow. After Robert died, I spent every weekend at the country house. Sometimes I'd stay for a whole week, just sitting on that porch swing he built, drinking my morning coffee, and talking to him like he was still right there beside me. The house needed some repairs, sure. The gutters leaked a little during heavy rains. Some of the window screens had tiny holes. But it was mine. It was the one place on earth where I felt completely at peace, completely myself. Michael used to visit often in those first few years after his father passed. He'd bring his wife Sandra and their 2 little ones. We'd have such wonderful times together. But gradually, the visits became less frequent. Sandra seemed uncomfortable there, always complaining about the old furniture or the outdated kitchen. I should have paid more attention to the signs. Michael had been acting different for months before the conversation that changed everything. Our weekly phone calls became shorter and shorter. When I'd suggest family dinners, he was always too busy with work or Sandra's family obligations. Sandra barely spoke to me anymore during the rare times we did see each other. She'd sit there scrolling through her phone while I tried to make conversation with my grandchildren. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that all families go through difficult periods. I made excuses for their behavior because I loved them so much. But looking back now, I can see they were already planning to take advantage of my gentle nature. They mistook my kindness for weakness, my love for foolishness. The conversation that broke my heart happened on a cold Tuesday morning in November. Michael called and asked if we could meet for lunch at Peterson's Diner, the little place downtown where I used to take him for chocolate chip pancakes when he was small. I thought maybe he wanted to talk about Christmas plans or ask for advice about something. I was so excited to spend time with my son. But when I got there, his face was serious, almost cold. He barely touched his food, just sat there fidgeting with his napkin like he was working up courage for something. Finally, he looked across the table at me and said, "Mom, Sandra's parents are having some financial troubles. Their apartment lease is up next month, and they can't afford to renew it." I nodded sympathetically, already thinking about ways we could help them. Then Michael dropped the bomb that shattered my world into a million pieces. "We've decided to let them live in the country house. It's perfect for them. They're retired now, and they need somewhere peaceful to spend their golden years. I felt like someone had poured ice water through my veins. But I stayed calm, kept my voice steady. Michael, honey, that's my house. That's where your father and I. He cut me off with a wave of his hand. Mom, let's be realistic here. You barely use the place anymore. It's just sitting there empty most of the time. Sandra's parents will take good care of it, and it solves everyone's problems. The way he said it, so casual, so dismissive, like my feelings didn't matter at all. Like 45 years of memories meant nothing. I sat there staring at this man who looked like my son but sounded like a complete stranger. Michael, I said quietly, that house is where you learned to ride your bike, where we celebrated every birthday and Christmas, where your father taught you to fish in the pond out back. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I know, Mom, but that's all in the past. We need to think about practical matters now. Sandra's parents don't have anywhere else to go, and you have your own house in town. You don't need two houses. The word need hung in the air between us like a slap, as if love and memories and a lifetime of sacrifices could be measured by simple need. As if the place where I felt closest to my departed husband was just extra property to be handed out like charity. Have you discussed this with Sandra's parents? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Of course, Michael said, and for the first time he looked a little guilty. They're very grateful. Sandra's mom is already planning how she'll arrange the furniture and where she'll put her sewing machine. They had planned it all out, made all the decisions without even asking me, without considering that I might have feelings about it, without remembering that every stick of furniture in that house had been chosen by Robert and me together, that every room held sacred memories they would be stomping all over with their rearrangements and changes. I felt a pain in my chest so sharp I thought I might be having a heart attack. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't pound my fists on the table like every fiber of my being wanted to do. Instead, I reached across the table and patted my son's hand gently. If that's what you've decided, Michael, then I suppose that's what will happen. His face showed confusion, then relief, then something that might have been disappointment. I think part of him expected me to fight back, to show some spirit. But I had learned long ago that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing at all. Sometimes silence speaks louder than screams. Sometimes a gentle acceptance can accomplish what arguments never could. After lunch, I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Mr. Harrison had been handling our family's legal matters for over 20 years. He was one of Robert's closest friends, and he knew every detail of our financial situation. Martha, he said when I walked into his office with tears finally streaming down my face. What's wrong, dear? I told him everything. About Michael's announcement, about Sandra's parents moving into my house, about how they'd made all these plans without consulting me. Mr. Harrison's face grew darker with every word. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. Martha, do you remember the special provisions Robert insisted we put in his will? You see, my Robert was not just a loving husband and father. He was also a very wise man who understood human nature better than most. When we were updating our wills 5 years before he passed, he insisted on including some very specific language about the country house. Martha, he had said then, I love Michael with all my heart, but I've seen what happens to families when property and money get involved. People change. They forget what's really important. So Robert made sure that the country house couldn't just be given away or sold without very specific legal procedures. The house was protected by something called a family trust, with me as the sole trustee. Even if something happened to me, the house couldn't be transferred to non-family members without a court review. Mr. Harrison pulled out the thick folder containing Robert's will and spread the papers across his desk. Look here, Martha, he said, pointing to a paragraph I had forgotten all about. Robert was very clear. The country house must remain in the family bloodline. If anyone attempts to transfer ownership or possession to non-family members without proper legal procedures, the trust automatically takes over management of the property. My heart started beating faster as I read the words my husband had written to protect us. "What does that mean exactly?" "Yes." Mr. Harrison smiled, and for the first time that day, I felt a spark of hope. "It means, dear Martha, that your son cannot give that house to his in-laws. Legally, it's impossible without your written consent and a court order." Robert had thought of everything. Not only was the house protected from being given away, but the trust also included funds for maintenance and repairs. Money that had been sitting in a special account all these years, earning interest, waiting to be used. "How much money are we talking about?" "Yes." Mr. Harrison did some quick calculations on his computer. "With interest over the past 8 years, there's approximately $47,000 available for house maintenance, property taxes, and security measures." $47,000. My beloved Robert had been taking care of us even from beyond the grave. All those years of extra shifts and weekend work had paid for more than just building materials. He had built us a fortress of protection that Michael never even knew existed. "What happens now?" I asked Mr. Harrison. "Well," he said, leaning back in his chair, "we need to formally activate the trust and notify all parties involved. That means sending official letters to Michael and Sandra, explaining the legal situation. We'll also need to arrange for security measures at the property to prevent any unauthorized occupation." I thought about Michael's face when he received that letter. Part of me felt sorry for him, knowing how embarrassed he would be in front of Sandra's family. But a bigger part of me felt relieved. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my own life again. My Robert was still protecting me, still fighting for what was right, still making sure our family legacy would be preserved. That evening I called my sister Dorothy in Florida. At 81, she's the only person left who really knew Robert and me in our younger days. "Dottie," I said when she answered the phone, "you'll never guess what Robert did." I told her everything about the trust, about the protection he had built into his will, about how he had somehow known this day might come. Dorothy was quiet for a moment. Then she started laughing. Not mean laughter, but the warm, appreciative chuckle of someone who had known my husband's character for 50 years. "That's our Robert," she said. "Always thinking 3 steps ahead. Always taking care of his girls." Hearing her say his girls made me cry happy tears. Even though he was gone, Robert was still taking care of his girls. The next morning, Mr. Harrison called with an update. He had sent certified letters to Michael and Sandra, explaining the legal situation with the country house. He had also arranged for a security company to install new locks and a basic alarm system at the property. "The security team found something interesting when they were checking the house," he said. "It looks like someone has already been there, measuring rooms and making notes about furniture placement." My blood ran cold. Sandra's parents had already been to my house, planning their takeover like it was a done deal. They had walked through the rooms where Robert and I had loved and laughed and raised our son. They had probably been discussing which of our precious belongings they would throw away to make room for their own things. But the security team had done more than just change the locks. They had installed cameras that would alert us if anyone tried to enter the property without permission. They had also put up very official-looking signs explaining that the property was now under legal protection, and that trespassing would result in immediate prosecution. "Martha," Mr. Harrison said, "I want you to know that everything is completely legal and above board. Your husband's trust was expertly crafted, and there's no way anyone can challenge it successfully. The house is yours, and it will remain yours for as long as you want it." For the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully that night, knowing that Robert's love was still wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Michael called me the next day. His voice was shaking with anger and embarrassment. "Mom, what is this legal letter about? Sandra's parents are humiliated. They've already given notice at their apartment. They've sold some of their furniture. Now you're telling them they can't move into the house. This is insane." I let him vent for a few minutes. Then I spoke very calmly. "Michael, honey, I tried to tell you at lunch that the house had special meaning to me. You didn't want to listen. Now you're learning that your father protected our family home in ways you never understood." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Michael said something that broke my heart all over again. "Mom, you're destroying my marriage. Sandra is furious with me. Her parents think I lied to them." "Michael," I said gently, "I am not destroying anything. You created this situation when you decided to give away something that wasn't yours to give. Your father spent 45 years building and protecting that house for our family. Not for Sandra's family. Not for anyone else. For us." I could hear Sandra yelling in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mom, please. Can't we work something out? Maybe Sandra's parents could rent the house from you. Or maybe they could just stay there temporarily until they find something else." I closed my eyes and thought about Robert, about what he would want me to do. "Son," I said, "your father's will is very clear. The house stays in our bloodline. That's final." That Saturday was supposed to be the day Sandra's parents moved into my country house. Instead, it became the day they learned that their daughter's husband had promised them something he never had the right to give. According to the security company, a moving truck arrived at the property around 9 in the morning. Sandra's parents, Michael, Sandra, and even my 2 grandchildren were there, ready to help with the big move. But when they tried to use the old key, it didn't work. When they tried to break in through a window, the alarm system went off. And when they called the police to report a break-in, the officers had to explain that they were the ones attempting to trespass on legally protected property. Mr. Harrison called me around noon to report what had happened. "Martha, the situation at the house has been resolved peacefully." The police officers were very professional, and they explained the legal situation to everyone involved. Michael's in-laws were understandably upset, but they accepted that they had been given incorrect information about their ability to occupy the property. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for the embarrassment my son must have felt, but relief that Robert's careful planning had protected our family home. "What happens next?" I asked. "Well," Mr. Harrison said, "I believe Michael will probably want to have a serious conversation with you very soon. This experience has likely opened his eyes to a few things he hadn't considered before." Michael showed up at my door that very evening. But this wasn't the confident, dismissive man who had announced his plans at the diner a few days earlier. This was my little boy, the one who used to crawl into my lap when he was scared or confused. His eyes were red, and his shoulders were slumped with the weight of his mistakes. "Mom," he said quietly, "can I come in? I think we need to talk." I opened the door wide and led him to the kitchen table where we'd had so many important conversations over the years. I made him a cup of coffee just the way he liked it as a child, with extra sugar and a splash of cream. For several minutes, we just sat there in the comfortable silence of a mother and son who had found their way back to each other. "I messed up, Mom," Michael finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I messed up so badly I don't even know where to start apologizing." I reached across the table and took his hand, just like I had when he was small and needed comfort. "Start wherever you need to, sweetheart. I'm listening." And then the floodgates opened. Michael told me everything. How Sandra had been pressuring him for months to ask for the house. How her parents had been dropping hints about needing a place to retire. How Sandra had convinced him that I was being selfish by keeping such a big house when I lived alone. How he had started believing that his father's memory wasn't as important as keeping his wife happy. By the time he finished talking, we were both crying. "Mom, I forgot who raised me," Michael said through his tears. "I forgot the values Dad taught me. I forgot that family means loyalty and respect, not just taking whatever you want from the people who love you most." I squeezed his hand tighter. "Michael, we all make mistakes. The important thing is learning from them and making things right." He looked up at me with eyes that reminded me so much of Robert's. "How can I make this right? Sandra's parents won't even speak to me. Sandra is talking about marriage counseling. The kids keep asking why Grandma and Grandpa can't move to the pretty house like we promised. I've hurt everyone I love, including you." I thought carefully before I answered. This was one of those moments that would shape our relationship for years to come. Michael, the first thing you need to do is have an honest conversation with Sandra. A real marriage is built on understanding and respect for both families, not just one. If she can't accept that your father protected our family home for good reasons, then you have bigger problems than where her parents are going to live. Michael nodded slowly. And the second thing, he asked. The second thing is that you need to help me figure out a way to assist Sandra's parents without giving away what isn't mine to give. Maybe there are other solutions we haven't considered yet. Over the next hour, Michael and I worked out a plan that honored both families. The country house would remain in our family, just as Robert intended. But Michael and Sandra would help me research affordable senior housing options for her parents. If they needed financial assistance for a deposit or moving expenses, I would consider helping with that from my own savings. It's not about the money, Mom, Michael said. It's about Sandra's parents feeling like they matter to our family. They were hurt that I promised them something and then couldn't deliver. I understood that completely. Being part of a family means being valued and included, not just tolerated. Michael, I said, why don't you invite Sandra and her parents over for Sunday dinner next week? I'd like to apologize to them personally for the confusion and talk about ways we can all work together as one big family. His face lit up like a Christmas tree. Really, Mom? You'd do that after everything that happened? I smiled at my son, my heart full of love and forgiveness. Honey, that's what families do. We work through problems together. We don't just give up on each other when things get difficult. That night, Michael helped me plan a special dinner menu that would include some of Sandra's parents' favorite foods. It felt so good to be planning something positive instead of dealing with conflict and hurt feelings. The Sunday dinner was a huge success. Sandra's parents, Jim and Carol, were initially nervous and embarrassed about the whole situation. But I made sure they felt welcomed and valued from the moment they walked through my door. Jim, Carol, I said, hugging them both. I am so sorry for the confusion about the house. Michael should have explained the legal situation before making any promises. But I hope you know that you're always welcome in our family, and I'd like to help you find a wonderful place to spend your retirement years. By the end of the evening, we were all laughing and sharing stories like we'd been friends for years. Over the following weeks, something beautiful happened. Instead of the country house being a source of division in our family, it became a place that brought us all closer together. Michael and Sandra started visiting regularly again, bringing the grandchildren to play in the same yard where their father had played 40 years earlier. Jim and Carol joined us sometimes, and Carol even helped me replant some of the flower beds that had gotten overgrown. We found them a lovely apartment in a senior community just 20 minutes from both Michael's house and mine. The trust fund that Robert had set up even covered their moving expenses and security deposit. Everyone was happy, and more importantly, everyone felt valued and included. Sandra pulled me aside one evening after dinner and said something that made my heart sing. Martha, I owe you a huge apology. I was so focused on solving my parents' housing problem that I forgot to consider your feelings about the house. Michael told me all the stories about how you and Robert built that place together, and I understand now why it's so special to you. I'm ashamed that I pushed him to ask for something so precious without thinking about what it meant to you. I hugged her tight and told her that understanding and forgiveness were what family was all about. The country house itself has never looked better. With the trust fund money, I was able to hire contractors to fix the leaky gutters, replace the old windows, and give the whole place a fresh coat of paint. Michael and Sandra helped me choose new furniture for some of the rooms, pieces that honored the old memories while creating space for new ones. The grandchildren have their own room now, decorated with pictures of adventures they've had at the house. Jim helped me repair the old fishing dock, and now he and Michael take the kids fishing every weekend. It's exactly what Robert would have wanted. The house filled with family, laughter, and love. 6 months after that terrible lunch at Peterson's Diner, Michael surprised me with something that made me cry happy tears. He had been secretly working with a local photographer to create a beautiful book of family memories from the country house. Pictures from birthdays, Christmas mornings, fishing trips, garden parties. 45 years of precious moments all compiled into a gorgeous coffee table book. "Mom," he said when he presented it to me, "I realized that I had forgotten what this house really represents. It's not just a building. It's the heart of our family. It's where Dad's love still lives. And it's where we'll keep making memories for generations to come." The last page of the photo book contained a letter that Michael had written to his father. In it, he thanked Robert for being wise enough to protect the family home, and he promised to teach his own children the same values of loyalty, respect, and love that he had learned growing up. "Dad," the letter read, "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand what you were trying to teach me. But Mom's gentle strength and your continued guidance have helped me find my way back to what's really important. I promise to be the kind of son, husband, and father that would make you proud." Reading that letter, I felt Robert's presence so strongly it was like he was sitting right there beside me. Today, our family is stronger than it has ever been. Michael calls me every day not because he has to but because he wants to. Sandra and I have become genuine friends, sharing recipes and gardening tips and stories about the funny things the grandchildren say. Jim and Carol are like the parents I never had, and they've become regular fixtures at our Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. The country house has taught us all that love isn't about getting everything you want. It's about understanding what really matters and being willing to work together to protect and preserve it. People sometimes ask me if I was wrong to let Michael learn his lesson the hard way instead of just explaining the legal situation from the beginning. But I don't think so. Sometimes people need to face the consequences of their choices to truly understand why those choices were wrong. Michael needed to feel what it was like to lose something precious. He needed to see how his decisions affected other people. He needed to find his way back to the values Robert and I taught him. And most importantly, he needed to learn that love and respect aren't things you can take for granted, even from the people who love you most. The trust that Robert established has been such a blessing. Beyond protecting the house, it's taught us all about planning for the future and thinking about how our choices will affect the people we love. Michael and Sandra have now set up their own family trust, making sure their children will be protected from the same kinds of problems we faced. Jim and Carol have done the same thing, working with Mr. Harrison to make sure their own family legacy is preserved. It's amazing how one wise man's foresight created ripples of protection that will benefit our family for generations to come. The country house has also become a place of healing for me personally. In the months after Robert's death, I was so wrapped up in grief that I stopped taking care of myself properly. But working on the house repairs, planning family gatherings, and creating new memories with the grandchildren has given me a sense of purpose again. I've started painting again, something I gave up years ago. The sunroom is now my art studio, and I spend hours there creating pictures of the garden, the pond, the old oak trees that Robert planted. It's my way of preserving the beauty he created for future generations to enjoy. Last month, we celebrated what would have been Robert's 76th birthday at the country house. The whole extended family was there: Michael and Sandra, the grandchildren Jim and Carol, my sister Dorothy who flew in from Florida, even some of Robert's old friends from the factory. We told stories, shared memories, and watched the sunset from the porch swing he built with his own hands. As the evening grew quiet and the fireflies started dancing in the yard, I felt such overwhelming gratitude for the man who had loved me enough to protect our family even after he was gone. His wisdom, his foresight, and his unconditional love had saved us from a mistake that could have torn us apart forever. The grandchildren, who are now 10 and 12, have started asking questions about inheritance and family legacy. They want to understand why the country house is so special and what it means to be part of a family that values loyalty and tradition. Michael and I have started having regular conversations with them about money, property, and responsibility. We want them to understand that being part of a family isn't just about what you can get from other people. It's about what you can contribute, what you can protect, and what you can pass on to the next generation. These are lessons that will serve them well throughout their lives. I've also started volunteering with a local organization that helps families resolve property disputes and inheritance conflicts. So many families are torn apart by misunderstandings about money and possessions. My story has helped several other families find peaceful solutions to similar problems. One elderly gentleman told me that hearing about Robert's trust inspired him to set up similar protections for his own family farm. A widow with 3 adult children used our example to have honest conversations about her estate planning before problems could develop. It feels good to know that our experience is helping other families avoid the pain we went through. The legal profession has also taken notice of Robert's carefully crafted trust. Mr. Harrison has told me that several other lawyers have asked to study the documents as examples of excellent estate planning. Robert's foresight in protecting family property while still allowing for legitimate needs and circumstances has become a model for other families facing similar challenges. It makes me proud to know that my husband's wisdom is still helping people, still making a positive difference in the world. He always said that the best way to be remembered was to leave the world a little better than you found it. I think he succeeded in that goal. As I sit here today, looking out at the garden where Robert and I spent so many happy hours together, I'm filled with gratitude for the journey we've been on. Yes, there were moments of pain and conflict. Yes, there were times when I wondered if our family would ever heal from the mistakes that were made. But ultimately, love won. Understanding won. The values that Robert and I tried to instill in our son eventually guided him back to what was right and true. The country house that could have divided us instead became the foundation for a stronger, more united family than we had ever been before. If you're listening to this story and you're facing similar challenges with your own family, please don't give up hope. People can change. Love can overcome even the deepest hurts. And sometimes, the very thing that threatens to tear a family apart can actually bring them closer together than they ever imagined possible. Be patient with the people you love. Be firm about your boundaries and values. But never stop believing that redemption and forgiveness are possible, even in the darkest moments. Family is messy and complicated and sometimes painful, but it's also the most precious gift we have in this world. The country house continues to be our family's gathering place, our sanctuary, our reminder of what really matters in life. Every summer, we host a big reunion where cousins and aunts and uncles come from all over the country to spend time together. The children play in the same yard where their parents played decades ago. The adults sit on Robert's porch sharing stories and laughter late into the evening. And I, the matriarch of this beautiful, imperfect, loving family, sit in my favorite chair and marvel at how one man's wisdom created a legacy that will endure for generations. This is what love looks like when it's protected and nurtured and allowed to grow. Dear ones watching Granny's Voice today, I want you to remember that every family has its storms and struggles. Every family faces moments when love is tested and values are challenged. But with patience, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to what's right, those storms can make us stronger instead of breaking us apart. Don't be afraid to set boundaries when they're needed. Don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in. And never ever underestimate the power of gentle strength and quiet determination. Sometimes the softest voice carries the most authority. Sometimes the gentlest heart has the most courage. As we near the end of today's story, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking this journey with me. Your comments and messages mean more to me than you'll ever know. So many of you have shared your own family stories, your own struggles and triumphs. We're all connected by the universal experiences of love, loss, forgiveness, and hope. Please continue to share your stories in the comments below. Your wisdom and experiences help other viewers who might be facing similar challenges. We're all in this together, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. If this story has touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to Granny's Voice and ring that notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories. We have so many more tales to share about family, love, resilience, and the power of doing what's right even when it's difficult. Your support allows me to keep sharing these stories, and I'm grateful for every single view, like, and comment. You make this old grandmother's heart very happy.